Today we're working with a Alienware Aurora R3. So bear with me on the primary of the video. I'm gonna try to keep everything in frame as best as possible, but this is a large, kind of unusually shaped unit, so there might be a few times things get out of frame. I do these videos myself, so I don't have somebody that can hold the camera and make sure everything stays in frame. Also, I'm not doing a full tear apart on this one, primarily because removing the motherboard from this is a bad idea. I guess if for whatever reason you have a totally trashed unit, and even then it's kind of pointless. The boards are cheap enough now for socket 1155 that even the most basic board that would probably be more useful than the board in this Alienware, if it's outside of this Alienware, is so cheap now. I mean, 50 bucks if you look in the right place. It's just not necessary. Plus, the moment you take it out of the Alienware, your Alienware isn't an Alienware anymore. It's not like you're going to take the board out of this thing, put it in a custom case, and say, ha ha, look at my new Alienware. Like, it's not like that. So, one of the big reasons for that too is that the things that are cool on this, like the custom lighting effects, for example, are typically either not going to work, or the complexity level required to make them work on an aftermarket system, like if you take this stuff out, or for example if you put a different board in this case, if you care about those lights. I mean, I've seen some tutorials, I think, on how to do it, but it's not really practical for a normal person who isn't just an absolute nutcase to try to do. There's no reason to do it. So anyway, let's get started here. So the first thing to note is that this right here moves. It's a locking mechanism for the side panel. You want it moved towards the motherboard. And then the main panel is this entire back piece here. And when you do that, let's see if I can do this right, so you can see it. Okay, so when you do that, you actually hear, so put that back in. So when you pull up on this right here, you'll see this move a little bit, and you'll hear it release, and you can pull it out. It's a little bit, okay, there it goes. So it does have so it comes right off. It slides in on the bottom. So if you can see this, it's kind of got a notch here on the case. And so when you open it up, it kind of pulls out and then up. So this unit is not clean, but it is not utterly filthy either. This is the first time I've actually gone through it. I'm not going to clean it, and I didn't clean it because I want you to get an idea of real world the condition these are going to be in. Most people that have a unit like this aren't going to completely trash it. It's going to be an okay condition, but you're going to see some dust. There's going to be some buildup. It is what it is. But let's get started here. I might have, well, that's probably about as good as I'm going to get. Let's see here. Get a little closer? Nah, realistically. Well, I guess I could try. Nah, if I try to do anything else, you won't get the rest of it in frame. Okay, so you've got this cover piece here. It's pretty simple. This white thing here is a lift. And it looks like that is attached. Let me see if there's a quick. Actually, I bet. No, it doesn't look like there's a quick release. Oh, maybe there is. I bet if you take a flathead. Let's see here. I'm gonna guess that this will work. Yes, it does. Okay, so if you want to remove this piece completely, there's a thing right here. You just kind of put your screwdriver in. It's kind of hinged on here. So it looks like, and this probably isn't proper technique, but it should work. So, or, okay, I guess you can unscrew that. I think the easier way to do it, though, is going to be what I was showing. Yeah, that's, maybe not. On here. I guess you could technically bend it. You could bend those brackets. Do we want to unscrew? I guess we'll just unscrew it. I didn't want to, but let's see here. If we have a screwdriver. Some of these Alienware parts, when you unscrew them, can be kind of a pain in the butt. So I think, oh, you got to remove. Yeah, so I'm not going to recommend this because this is a unit that you're going to want to that you're going to work on as a piece. You're not really going to want to rip the entire thing apart. So the way you do this, that pops up like that and then gives you access to everything else. Let me move the camera here so we can get a little more of a interior shot. Come on. Let's see if I can. Oh yeah. Okay, there we go. So, point out our. I might have to change my focus here just a little. Come on. That's probably as good as it's going to get. Okay, so you've got liquid cooling system. It's a pretty typical Intel 11X cooling system, basic small setup. That is actually going to be easy to remove. I'll let's see if I can do that. Yep, that'll come right off. So, and that's going to be one that you're going to want to do. Let's actually pull the video card first. So, video card is obviously, can we see that? Can't quite tell. Can we see? Yeah, we can see that in the video. Okay, so it's pretty typical install. Power's on the back of the card. You're going to see this with various different video cards in it. Anything from, you know, a crappy, I don't know, like a GTX 760 all the way up to something like this. This one's a 770, but when you get into 70 cards is when they start getting large. So you remove your one screw. This might be held in with two, but in this case it only has one. Pull that out, and it has a, so this one uses a kind of a spring-loaded mechanism. I don't know if you can see that, but it's right down next to the PCIe slot right there. And you press on it, and the card releases. It releases the back end of the card. You want to make sure of that, because otherwise, you could, I mean, chances are you wouldn't actually destroy the system, but you could break off the back end. I guess you could theoretically break this notch off. Oops, dang it. I'm so bad at this. That notch right there, you could theoretically break that off, but usually I see that the slot typically breaks before the card breaks. So let's pull memory. Memory is in the standard location. The board is technically more or less a standard micro ATX board. Obviously it has some modifications for Alienware, specifically like stuff related to the lights and stuff like that, but it is technically a standard micro ATX board. Then let's see here. It looks like this one. So hard drives, when you receive it, are going to be right here. I think I got, let's see, where did I put those things? Here we go. That's not it. Oh, here we go. I did receive it with a hard drive. It'll be in these caddies. Typically they're just going to go right in like that. You'll just see them sitting there. They're obvious. You've got tab, and you'll have one. I mean, honestly, if you don't know how SATA works, you probably shouldn't be inside one of these things, but just for shits and giggles, you'll have a plug, and you'll pull them out. and then this will pop right out. And that's pretty much standard Dell, actually. That's kind of a Dell mechanism. Trying to figure out where my screwdrivers went. Gonna need those. Oh, here we go. Okay. So, in order to remove the liquid cooling system, you're going to have your... It looks like this one is using a backside bracket, so it's got the retention bracket for the setup behind the motherboard, which, assuming they attached it right, that's a good thing. It'll stay in place, and once you're done, you can just put this back in place. In theory, you should be able to use this with a non-liquid cooled, if for whatever reason, definitely those pumps do fail, and these are probably probably standard mid-range coolers. They're not going to be high-end coolers. So that'll come off, and then it's got a bracket that it sits in, with it holds it in. And then to remove the rest of it, on the back end, it's going to be a standard, let's see if I can do this without damaging anything here. Gosh darn it. Sorry. Unfortunately, my camera likes to auto stop every so often. Okay, so on the back end, you're going to just have a standard fan setup here, which is what's holding this in. It's just 4 screws. That would be the biggest, the biggest reason for completely removing the liquid cooling system would be if the pump had failed, or if the fan was getting loud, you definitely would want to consider replacing it. Especially if you're refurbing this to sell it. Never, ever, ever, ever sell the units with noisy, rackety fans. It's an incredibly easy thing to fix, and customers look so bad on systems like this when they're loud and rackety. There's just no reason not to replace them. So, if you can see on here, there's definitely a bit of dust built up. I'm not going to do it on camera, but I'll probably pull this fan off. It's screw, and go through it and clean it out just to make sure it's nice and clean. Okay, so you have pretty standard stuff here inside. Pull it back over here for you to see. Move those. This one's actually in good condition, so I'm trying not to scratch the heck out of this thing. Okay, so back to here. So standard stuff, processor. Typically, you're going to receive these unless somebody's gutted the chip and swapped the chip. Typically, these are going to have. Oh, that might suck. Oh, this is not. Well, that kind of sucks. Well, maybe not. Looked like that thing was going to move around. Probably want to leave it flat like this. This has, like I was saying, so unless you get these modified, like somebody's gutted it for the chip for whatever reason. Again, I don't know why you would gut this if it's in working condition. The chips aren't worth an insane amount anymore, but it's typically going to be an i7 2600. Pretty much all of these. Nobody ordered these with an i5. I hope they did it. It does have the connections necessary for 2 high-end video cards, or I'm sorry, 2. I would say low high-end cards. Most mid, upper mid, and low high-end cards aren't going to need more than a 6 and an 8 or 2 6s. Like a GTX 980 would be a good candidate for this, and those are typically going to take I think actually a lot of them are 6 and 6. For whatever reason, I think most of the 980s I see are actually lower power than the 970s. But if you get a big card like an Asus Strix, for example, those can take sometimes a couple of 8-pins. I guess in theory, you could adapt without any wattage changes or anything. You could adapt from the 2 6s to another 8 and then 2 more 8s. And so if you had something like, say, my Asus Strix 1080 Ti, I believe takes, I can't remember. I thought that card might have taken 3 8s. It's either 2 8s and a 6, in which case you're already covered. But there's a lot of expansion potential here without doing a whole lot of stuff. Standard CD drives. CD drives are actually really easy on this one. This one, it appears that they actually just straight up slide out. How easy is that? This along the top here, I think, let's see here. I think this one is fan control. The other one is lighting control. Again, I would strongly recommend against messing with that, because once you do, if you mess it up, fixing it can be a pain in the butt if you give a crap about the lights. A lot of people don't actually care about the lights. But if you do like the lights and yours are working properly, don't mess with them. There's some, like I said, complicated tutorials on how to mess with it online, but for any lay person, I wouldn't mess with it. These are fairly complicated for what they are. You've got 2 PCI Express. Let me see if I can show that a little better. Dang it. Okay, so you've got, again, apologize for the lighting, but anyway, you've got PCIe, X16, X16, and then 2 X1s. Most people are going to use this one for video card, and then you'll have these 2 free with that one covered. USB 3.0 front panel header. You know, I haven't turned this. I haven't turned it on in a quiet room yet. I've seen it run. I know this thing works, but I haven't turned it on in a quiet room. I'm gonna bet dollars for days that this fan is a racket. I might recommend replacing that if you can find a compatible one. If not, you might have to deal with that one. I don't know. Let me see if I have an exact wattage on this unit. Let's see here. I don't know if this has... Oftentimes these do not have exact wattages. Let me see. So this does come out pretty easily. Maybe not. I guess not. Oh, there it goes. So there's that. All that does is cover this right here. No, I would have to look up on Google the specs. I'm gonna say though, this is I mean, it's got to be at least a 650. You never get 4 PCIe plugs on anything less than a 650. I mean, it's just a rule of thumb. It's gonna have at least 650. This is gonna support any expansion within any normal limits. I mean, you can always find devices that are going to need more power, but within reasonable limits for normal people, this is going to be perfectly fine. You might start seeing these units. Units like these tend to start losing value pretty steep at some point, so these may end up being similar to the Dell workstations. These may end up being a really cheap way to get a fully capable system, just because you'll get a high-end power supply, a decent case. It still looks modern enough that it doesn't look horribly dated. If somebody were to release this system right now, you could probably convince me that it was current if I didn't know otherwise. Trying to think what else is relevant here. SATA ports. Dang it. Stay. SATA ports are right here. Again, pretty much standard positioning for an 1155 board. Same with your front panel audio. Connector in the lower bottom corner. Standard. Same with USB headers. Standard location, standard location. Most of this is a fairly standard setup, but The only difference is making all the Alienware lights and stuff work is a pain in the butt without their original board. Standard 24 pin does apparently have this. I'm guessing that this SATA port right here is typically when they put one to the back like that, it's really intended more. Yeah, it even says it, eSATA right there. BIOS battery right here. I'm trying to think what else is going to be relevant to people. Let's go over expansion just a bit. So it does have a nice set of expansion ports. Let's do this. Do that. Oh yeah, there we go. That's better. Okay, so we've got, let's see here. Actually surprisingly few, only one USB 3. So that's your blue USB 3, and then it's got 2, 4, 6 standard USB, a 1394, aka Firewire, Ethernet, outputs for full surround sound. Nobody ever uses these, but these are for optical sound output, and then your power supply. And then we have, when this moves up, oops, not right there, and that's covered, and I'm gonna guess, oh nope, they're on top. So your exterior ports are under this panel here, and they face backwards. So anyway, kind of a quick look at the Alienware Aurora R3. I hope everybody finds this video interesting and informative, and thanks for watching the video.